What's up, you guys? Welcome to Walk the Line. I got a special episode lined up for you guys. I'm going to be previewing a fight that we all hope to see take place in the octagon in the near future. And you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm going to be previewing Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall. I'm going to be diving into the opening betting odds that we've seen released. And I'm going to tell you guys how I see that fight playing out. And a lot has changed. I've given you guys my thoughts upon the fight in the past. But the performance that Jon Jones just had, once again up in the heavyweight division, defeating the greatest heavyweight of all time, although Miocic up there in age, just the performance that Jon Jones just had shakes things up. All right, so I'm going to give you guys my opinion on how that fight takes place. There is no UFC action taking place this upcoming weekend, but you guys can expect to see my UFC 310 full prediction video coming out very soon, hopefully by tomorrow. I also will be previewing PFL 10, which takes place this upcoming Friday night. So we do have some MMA action taking place this upcoming weekend. It's a pretty stacked card as far as the PFL goes. There's some exciting fights. First off, in the co-main event, we have Dakota Dicheva stepping back in there. If you guys aren't familiar with her, I mean, you better start catching up to pace there. I mean, she is a stud. She may be the most exciting fighter in all of women's mixed martial arts right now, right? She moves like a video game character. Her striking is phenomenal, and maybe it's a shame the UFC didn't get their hands on her, but still, it's a solid fight there. Over in the PFL, she's taken on the former title challenger Natalia Santos. In the main event, we have Timur Khizriev, one of 3 undefeated Dagestani fighters fighting on the main card. He's taken on Brendan Loughnane. Impa Kasanganay is also fighting on that card. So, I mean, definitely a fight card that's worth diving into. And he's taking on Yagsha Meredov, who's a fighter representing Turkmenistan, who's been an absolute tear over there in the PFL. That's a very exciting fight. So I'm excited for that card. I am definitely going to be diving into that. I'll have that video up here very soon. All right, guys, I appreciate all your support. We had another profitable weekend. We profited for UFC Macau. Going into that card, we had back-to-back clean sweeps. We just missed the clean sweep for UFC Macau. We've been on absolute fire. If anybody wants to work with me for my official plays, do not hesitate to reach out to me. If you're interested, go shoot me a message over on my social media or email me. I got that all scrolling below. The best way to get a hold of me is through Instagram. Go follow me while you're over there at MMA Fortune Teller _. And with no further ado, I want to jump into this Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall prediction. And let's just dive into that fight as a whole. And I'll tell you guys how realistic it is that we see this fight take place in the near future. And well, we're going to talk the betting odds and all that good stuff. Real quick, just note, we are powered by BetUS. If anyone's looking to sign up to a new sports book, reach out to me. You can get a hold of me, just as I said earlier, on my social media, my email and all that. Reach out to me. I'll give you a referral link, and I'll give you a special gift if you sign up through my referral link. And you will also get a 150% match on your first 3 deposits. You can't beat that.
The teller.
So Jones, the UFC's heavyweight champion, Tom Aspinall, the intern champion. We'll see how that all shakes out now, depending on how long it's going to take for Jones to return to the octagon. That makes that situation a little weird. Of course, Aspinall was the intern, while Jones was away with the injury. Jones is going to have to make a return, or at least somewhat commit to a return relatively soon, I would believe. Otherwise, maybe the UFC strips him of the belt. And I could see Dana White kind of using that as leverage towards making that fight happen. Of course, Dana wants to see that fight happen. He's made that very obvious from some of the statements he's made at his recent press conference after that the UFC 309 fight card took place. But let's just dive into the pound-for-pound rankings here real quick. Okay, Jon Jones now bumps up to the number 2 spot. He surpasses Alex Pereira. Islam Makhachev is at that number 1 spot. How do you guys feel about that? I think now, for the fact that Jon Jones is starting to become more active, and you take a look at the history of what he's done inside the octagon, I have Jon Jones surpassing Islam Makhachev at that number 1 spot. Islam is a fighter that's been more active. He's had some phenomenal performances going out there, beating some of the best fighters in the game over the past 4 or 5 years. But Islam's still a fighter that we've seen lose in devastating fashion. We've seen him brutally KO'd. We've never seen Jon Jones lose a fight. And let's all be adults about the Matt Hamill situation, okay? Let's be realistic about what that situation was. And I just think that Jon Jones should be at that number 1 spot. So you guys tell me if you agree or disagree with me there. And I really have a bone to pick with the placement of a lot of fighters throughout the top 8 of these pound-for-pound rankings. Give me some feedback here. Tell me if I'm off. I want to know your guys' opinions here, okay? Ilia Topuria at the number 4 spot, I think you could potentially argue that he's above Alex. I don't know. I'm kind of torn on that. Ilya is a fighter that we've never seen lose a fight. Okay, he's gone out there and has taken out legends as of recently. And the way he's doing it, the way he's going out there and winning these fights, it's ridiculous. Okay, he's going out there starching legends. He's knocking out fighters that have never been knocked out before, like he just did against Max Holloway. Alex Pereira is a fighter that we've seen brutally KO'd within the last couple of years, right? You think about that Izzy fight. He made a mistake. He got brutally KO'd. I love the activity that he's had as of recently, taking out fighters like Khalil Roundtree and some of the competition he's had. I hold the Ilia Topuria competition as of recent to a higher standard, and I just think that he hasn't shown any flaws in the cage. So maybe we need to see a little bit more of a track record with Ilia. You want to see him be more active, but I think Ilia should be above Pereira. And I know that may rub some of you guys the wrong way, but let me know what you think about that. The fact that Bilal Muhammad is at the number 5 spot, that rubs me the wrong way. Okay, because Dricus du Plessis is a fighter that's going out there and finishing fights. He's finishing legends like he just did against Adesanya. Now, Dricus du Plessis hasn't lost a fight inside the octagon. We've seen Bilal Muhammad lose multiple fights, right? He lost to Jeff Neal. We've seen him finish back in the day by Vicente Luque. And I know that Muhammad's really gone to work over the past years, and he's been very hard to beat, and he has his own little win streak going, but he only has a couple more wins in that win streak than what Dricus du Plessis has done, and he's never tasted defeat, and he's just getting better and better. I think I got DDP above Bilal Muhammad. In fact, I know. I have him above Bilal Muhammad. And Tom Aspinall at the number 8 spot, I'll tell you why I really don't agree with that placement there. People are, as a whole, I believe that people are overlooking the importance or just the difficulty to put in work like Tom has in the heavyweight division. And I'm not talking about the heavyweight division as a whole, but I'm talking about in the top 10 or towards the pinnacle of the heavyweight division. It's very hard to put in that kind of work and to go out there and look as phenomenal as Tom has. He's going out there, he's finishing fighters left and right. He's finished some solid competition in the octagon as well. The fact that he's doing that towards the top of the heavyweight division, which is such a dangerous division. You make one mistake in there and you're getting slept. Okay, so I put more stock into what Tom has been doing. And when you sit back and just understand the talent that he is, okay, the talent that he is, the grappling skills, the way he moves in there for his size, the knockout ability, the striking, everything, I think that pound for pound, Tom Aspinall should be above even a Bilal Muhammad. So maybe some of you guys will disagree with me there. I just think that Tom Aspinall is a pound for pound better fighter when you really take a step back and analyze the whole thing. So let's get to it. What would a fight look like between Jones and Aspinall inside the octagon? Are we going to see that fight actually take place? And let's also dissect the opening betting odds. They're quite interesting. We'll get to those towards the end of the prediction. I'll also let you know, I want to preview quickly at the end of this a fight between Alex Pereira and Jon Jones, a fight between Alex Pereira and Tom Aspinall, because Pereira, in my opinion, is a real wild card in this whole Aspinall versus Jones conversation. I truly believe that. You guys, do not be surprised if we see Alex Pereira versus Tom Aspinall or Jon Jones before we see Jones versus Aspinall. I truly believe that. I know Dana White has said some comments recently about how Pereira, he's a little bit too undersized and he really doesn't want to see that. And he was kind of specifically pointing towards the grappling of Jon Jones and just how big and how quick he's moving in there. He was kind of like hinting at that, how he doesn't want to see that fight take place. I don't necessarily completely buy what Dana White was giving to us. I still think there's a strong possibility we see Pereira as the wild card. I wouldn't be shocked if we see Pereira versus Tom Aspinall with the winner getting an opportunity to face off with Jon Jones. And I think that Jon Jones is going to welcome a situation like that. All right. I'm leaning towards Jon Jones facing off with either Pereira or Tom Aspinall. He's going to return to the cage. He's already said that he's not looking to retire. So he doesn't really have many options. Okay. As far as fighting anybody else, it's going to be Pereira or it's going to be Tom Aspinall, right? He didn't drop his gloves in the octagon. He's not retiring. Okay. You take a look at his age. Okay. He's only 37 years old. Okay. For the heavyweight division, that's, I think he's just about entering his prime. There has been no signs of him talking about retirement. So that's key. You have to understand that he doesn't have a lot of evacuation routes. He's basically cornered. Or if he forces Tom Aspinall to fight Pereira first, I think Tom Aspinall, I guess we're going to jump to that here real quick. I think Tom Aspinall gets past Pereira. So we'll see that fight then take place. All right, Jones will be cornered, and I just feel very strongly that we're going to see the fight take place. Besides the fact that Jones is not looking to retire, Jones is a fighter. He's a human that cares very much about his legacy. Okay, if you listen to him in interviews, if you see the way he responds to certain questions and comments, you can tell that Jon Jones cares greatly about his legacy. He doesn't just want to be one of the greats. He wants to be the great. And this whole new situation with Tom Aspinall, the whole buzz about that matchup, it's just completely taken over the MMA world. And now it's starting to go mainstream as well. Okay, it's not just for the hardcore fans. I mean, it's mainstream. All of the sports world knows about this potential matchup, and we all want to see it. And I think that Jon Jones is cornered. And I think that we are going to see the fight take place one way or another. Okay, so that's my prediction right now. We will see these two men face off. Now, if you would have asked me how this Jones-Aspinall fight would have taken place, or who I had more confidence in getting the W before the Jones-Miocic fight just happened, I would have had a lot more confidence in Tom Aspinall prevailing there. But after how immaculate Jones just looked in that fight, although it was against a 42-year-old clunky Miocic who was coming off a long layoff and really didn't look to bring too much of a threat to that fight, you also have to put in a lot of stock to what Jones did. Okay, he's just really filling into that division very well. I like his frame there. I think that he fits perfectly into the heavyweight division. The confidence is there. I mean, the way he finished that fight was ridiculous. And I've changed my view now how I see the Aspinall-Jones fight playing out. Okay, I didn't put too much stock into that Ciryl Gane fight. I thought that was fluky. I thought that Ciryl Gane showed to be a little bit too one-dimensional, and he let the lights hit him, and I just didn't see something similar taking place with an Aspinall in there with Jones. But even though Miocic had all those variables with him going into that fight, I take a lot away from that Jones fight. Jones is just, he's amazing, man. He really is amazing. And this fight, or the potential fight between Jones and Aspinall, is one that could really go either way. If we're going to see a quick finish in the cage, if we see somebody get a knockout, I think that it's more likely we do see Tom Aspinall get the knockout. I do believe that. I mean, you take a look. Out of his 15 victories, 11 of them have come by way of knockout, and he's shown to land some nasty shots, on the feet. I mean, he's moving differently. He shows to have a lot more of that one pop KO type power. So if we do see a finish, I think it would come by way of Aspinall. He's an absolute fight finisher. His fights don't go long. He's also shown to have the submission threat there. He's a fighter that his base was BJJ. He's been training BJJ since he was a very young kid. So he's diverse with his attack. But the fact that a lot of his fights haven't gone long, that's a question mark that you have to bring kind of in a negative fashion, right? I think that's an edge. That's a benefit for Jon Jones. When we see Jon Jones's fights go more long, you see Jon Jones start to pick up reads and start to tactically pick things up. And I think the longer the fight goes, it does favor Jon Jones. Okay, so that's an X factor there, because you kind of need Aspinall to do what he does best, which is go out there, get a first round finish. I mean, take a look at all of his fights inside the UFC. He's only left the first round one time. Okay, and then he got the submission almost immediately when that second round kicked off against Andrei Arlovski. He's an early fight finisher. So I think that would be a benefit to him. If you were to say the fight's going to end quickly, yeah, it's probably most likely Aspinall getting a finish one way or another. But what's going to happen when he doesn't get that quick finish? And Jon Jones is a fighter that's shown to be so defensively sound, so durable. He has a solid chin. What's going to happen when the fight goes to the later rounds? Jon Jones may prevail with his wrestling. Okay, we don't know how Aspinall is going to look late. That whole narrative about Jones not being a real heavyweight fighter and Tom Aspinall as being the natural heavyweight fighter. I mean, look at their frames. Jon Jones would bring a 6.5-inch reach advantage, all right? And he knows how to fight long. He could eventually or potentially keep Aspinall at range and stifle him and get that fight to play out to the later rounds. I mean, these are all things you really got to be concerned about if you're backing Aspinall. At the end of the day, though, I'm going to give you my pick right now. I'm going to side with Tom Aspinall. I just think that Aspinall continues to deliver. I think that he is an athlete that we've yet to see in the fight game. The way that he moves with his size, and I think that he delivers in the later rounds as his career moves forward. When he gets caught up in those dog fights, I think that he's a fighter that will deliver in that sense. I think that he'll have the cardio to go, and I think that he'll look just as good in the early parts of his fights as he will eventually look in the later rounds. I just think that he's game. So I have a little bit more faith in him than maybe some of you guys do. And I got to stick with my Tom Aspinall pick here. And I think that he can get an early finish. I think I would actually say Tom Aspinall gets another early finish because he moves phenomenal, and everyone has their day. Even the greats like a Jon Jones. Jon Jones has never got caught with that one flush shot. He's never been knocked out, but we've seen him flustered at times in some of those fights that played out closely. The Santos fight, the Reyes fight. We seen him tagged up a little bit in our first fight against Gustafsson. I think Aspinall could find him. He could potentially get him out of there, and I still will settle in with the Tom Aspinall KO pick against Jon Jones. But I don't say it with a lot of confidence. And let's take a look at this betting line. So BetUS opened up an early line for this potential matchup with Tom Aspinall being a -140 favorite over the legendary GOAT Jones, who Jones you can catch at even odds. Jones is the underdog. I'm going to cut it to you guys nice and clear. I think that the value is on whoever the dog is. I really do. Whoever was going to be the underdog in this matchup, I think that if you played that type of long-term strategy, that's how you're prevailing there. You would be targeting the dog. We don't know how this fight's going to play out. There's just too many unknowns. Both these fighters are just great athletes. I mean, they're the top of the food chain. We don't know who's really going to deliver. I mean, they've been looking phenomenal in there. I think that you just side with the dog if you really wanted to play it smart. This is probably the type of fight for me that I just want to sit back and watch and enjoy as a fan. Now, I don't know if that would be the case. We may have some official locked in on a fight like this, but depending on how that line moved. But from what I've seen on this opening line, I think the value's on Jon Jones. So, I mean, that shows you I don't have an overwhelming amount of confidence in Aspinall, even though Aspinall is my pick. If I have to make a pick and a selection with the method, I say Tom Aspinall gets Jon Jones out of there via TKO. I know that's wild. Some of you guys are gonna think that's wild. It's gonna be hard for you to grasp that that's what I'm saying, but I mean, it's not as unlikely as you think. That's what Tom Aspinall does. So that's my official pick for how I see that fight taking place. And then real quick, I just want to say, if Alex Pereira was to step in there with Tom Aspinall, I don't have a line for that fight, but I have a good amount of confidence in Tom Aspinall getting the better of that matchup. I think that he could use his grappling to finish the fight early, potentially. But even as that fight progressed, I think that Tom Aspinall would have success with the grappling. And I think that Tom Aspinall would be more likely to knock out Pereira than Pereira to knock out Aspinall. Aspinall is obviously a larger fighter. He's going to carry more power than anything that Alex Pereira has seen in the MMA world and in the combat sports world. Even if you go back to his kickboxing matches, Tom Aspinall would be a completely different athlete compared to anything that Pereira has seen when you talk about the size and the speed and the power. And we've seen Pereira touched up multiple times. We saw Roundtree even counter him a couple times in that fight. Remember, Adesanya countered him and KO'd him. Even in the fight where Pereira finished Adesanya the first time around in the MMA world, he was hurt early on in that fight. At the end of that one round, he was saved by the bell there. Tom Aspinall would be more likely to get a knockout over Pereira, in my opinion, but can also go to the grappling. I have Tom Aspinall capped as like a -185 against Pereira, maybe even a -200 flat. I really have a lot of confidence in him in that matchup. And I think if you put Jones against Pereira, you're talking about a very similar line for me. And I think that Jon Jones would go the wrestling route early on in that fight. I do. I think he would keep him at range and wouldn't play into the danger too much, and eventually would use his wrestling. And he would have success in that fight and could potentially smash Pereira down on the mat with some nasty elbows and ground and pound him. Okay. We've seen some development from Pereira with this takedown defense, and he's working on his grappling game. But no, when you're in there with a guy like Jon Jones, he's not even going to be on his level, and he's going to get dominated and mauled, in my opinion. So I don't see Pereira matching up with either of them. Now, of course, you're talking about one of the most refined and dangerous strikers in the fight game. He could land a shot. I mean, if he can keep the fight there long enough, and he could potentially land his own shot. I mean, he's a stud too, but I don't have a lot of confidence in Pereira against either man. And it's interesting, Pereira's 37 years old, the same age as Jon Jones. So, we don't really look at Pereira like that, right? We look at him as this active stud. He came into the MMA world a little bit later on in his career, came over into the UFC later on, doesn't have as much mileage, but understand he's up there in age too. And Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall are completely different than the fighters that he's been in there with as of recently. And I think that he would run into some trouble there. So you guys, let me know what you think. Let me know where I was off. Hit me up in the comment section. Thought that was fun though. thought we would dissect those potential matchups. I mean, that's the cream of the crop as far as potential matchups in the MMA world. If we see any two of those three fighters matched up in any particular way and whatever order that plays out, I think that would be a win for us as fight fans, regardless. And I hope we get to see. I wouldn't mind seeing maybe Pereira versus Aspinall with the winner getting an opportunity against Jones. I wouldn't mind that at all. Obviously, I would love to see Aspinall just step right in there with Jones, but if Jones wants to play that game, that would be fun as well. So give me some feedback, guys. I appreciate you for stopping by. And like I said, you guys can expect a lot of content coming your guys' way this week. We're going to do the PFL breakdown, and we'll have UFC 310 coming your guys' way very soon. All right. I appreciate you guys. Hope you guys all had a great weekend. Signing out. Teller.
The teller.